As all of that had been going on, Thurin had been utterly wailing on the factotum and swashbuckler. We were pretty sure he's just human by this point. He's just apparently one of the most hardcore brawlers on the planet, pretty sure he's a monk at this point. To open, after jumping down the volcano and landing with a thud, he threw a kick at the factotum which connected hard enough to send him sprawling back through the tunnels. The swashbuckler took a true striking swing at him, and slashed him pretty good, and then another good slash afterward, but then Thurin opened up with some kind of rapid-fire flurry of punches. A lot of them didn't connect as the swashbuckler ducked and weaved, but the last one hit hard enough to knock him back against a wall. The factotum revealed that the speed portion of his build had been effort well spent, as on his turn he managed to sprint up from the darkness like the living shadow he is, slide across the dusty stone into a flanking position, and pop Thurin with a massive sneak attack that darn near pinned him to the wall. Thurin backhanded the factotum, again with enough force to send him sprawling against the far wall on the opposite side of the corner, before also taking one good heavy-handed punch at the swashbuckler. The swashbuckler dodged it by sliding down, and Thurin broke a chunk of the wall. The three basically went on like that, fighting their way deeper and deeper into the stone maw of the ziggurat, and the two of them dropped in hit points significantly. Chitter healed the swashbuckler, and the two healed each other, and while Thurin was obviously bloodied and in pain, he wasn't stopping. The fight was taking a lot out of them, and they truly gave it their all. Around the time the factotum started running out of inspiration points and getting too beaten to reasonably continue the fight, the infected changeling came sprawling in through the doorway, ranting and cursing loudly. Followed shortly thereafter by me and the dragon shaman. I hit Thurin with an eldritch blast, and we were thinking we were about to get the upper hand, when everything got darker. The doorway of the ziggurat was literally black with drifter bugs pouring in. The changeling chuckled hard. Thurin stopped fighting, looking at the infected changeling in fear. He asked what in the world was going on. The changeling answered she betrayed us. She started helping them. Thurin asked if he was supposed to just believe that blindly, and the changeling shifted to resemble him, with the glowing rune, and said yes. Yes you are. What that implied was obvious, and Thurin immediately cowed down with a nod. We all turned our attention to the doorway, and the gradually approaching mass of bugs. The changeling cackled. That idea you had, Thurin, drop an innocent into the volcano. We don't know why we didn't think of that before, would have been so much faster for us. Thurin looked at her in confusion. Before the bugs began to part, a red scaly devil came walking out between them, with a golden rune on its forehead. We wanted to fight. But, what could we do? The bugs were starting to literally climb together into shapes, humanoid forms shambling our way made of chitinous shell and still living insects. We ran. We bolted for the portal room, sending the kobold with the mirror first. The entire chase, a chorus of voices were screaming at us to give up the mirror. They knew where the Arctic platform was, but they wanted a shortcut, obviously. Fortunately, we successfully beat them to the portal room and shut the doorway behind us. The dragon shaman wanted to try to drag the changeling along, but there was no way. He was sincerely hoping that the attempted homicide by suicide thing had been a one-time course of actions. He wanted to try to abduct and heal her. We knew we needed to start keeping an eye on the platform soon. They'd be coming this way. But first we ducked into the consecrated ziggurat to check in with Makuir. We found him pacing in an obvious panic, barricaded in the portal room. We asked what was wrong. Our fears were confirmed. Priest had apparently set his men digging to reach the blessed ziggurat, and they'd gotten through. Makuir had managed to make a quick and sturdy barricade with some magical help, but it was only a matter of time before they got through. I giggled. And asked the DM if my gut instinct was true. The mental patients were soul-bound through it, right? The holder owned their immortal souls, even if that soul is their own. The DM smiled and nodded. I took the full round action to call it to me, from the volcano, and it still worked. Then I blasted through the barricade and floated out before them, telling them they worked for me now. The dragon shaman told me to free them. I floated down to him to talk face to face. I said that I saved his little girlfriend out of mutual respect, but that he was not going to be redeeming me. That as long as I held my soul physically in my hands, I didn't need any kind of redemption. I was currently my own god, and I intended to keep it that way. The dragon shaman said I was acting no different from the drifter with that last comment, and asked why they shouldn't be fighting me too. My response was just an issue of scale. And the enemy of my enemy, and all of that. The swashbuckler actually chimed in and said, in character, mind you, I don't like you. But I'm very glad we're friends. The dragon shaman scowled, but said nothing. I told him there was no shame in prioritizing, and that even his deity would understand why he was looking at the big picture right now. He nodded in agreement, sneered, and said, "You're right. You're small time, we have more important things to worry about." I actually fell out of character at that, with an ouch. Harsh. Wow. We laughed. Then we started discussing what to do. I set my undying mental patience marching towards the doorway of the ziggurat as a watch. They weren't strong, at all, they were just undying. Then we tried to formulate an immediate strategy based on what we knew. We needed to defend the Arctic platform at all costs at this point. The swashbuckler asked, why not just give the drifter hell? Do we care what happens to hell? The kobold rightly pointed out that there would be nothing forcing him to stop at that. In fact, he'd have every reason to keep going once he made it to another plane, because he could just keep infecting and infecting until there was nothing left but him. And the more of him there was, the faster he would spread. So we had to secure the ziggurat, secure the platform, and try to sync back up with the angel with utmost speed. Then we started talking about the bigger picture. This world was utterly screwed. We hadn't found a way to stop this infection from spreading. All we knew was that we could kill the bugs with healing magic, but that it just wasn't possible for us to make that much positive energy. And when we said that, the DM said calmly, "Behind you, you hear chitter scraping and chirping, starting to molt and evolve from his exposure to the desert ziggurat." We all just stared down at the table and let those gears whir in our brains for a minute. Dragon Shaman, okay. New plan. Makuhir, grab every healing bug you can, and start breeding more. We're going to move to the desert ziggurat and hold it, come hell or high water. Kobold, who? Swashbuckler, holy crap, we have an ace up our sleeves. It's a magical time to be us. Me, laughing face, this face. So that's us. Session is over, but next session, we've got to prepare ourselves for the mother of all asymmetrical sieges. We have to hold a massive stone ziggurat in a blisteringly hot desert with only one entrance, and we have to simultaneously hold an exposed to open-air stone platform in the Arctic winter. We don't know what's coming our way. But our DM sure likes to watch us squirm, doesn't he? And we leveled to 13. So to start the session, we sent our updated character sheets to our DM as normal. The Dragon Shaman pointed out that, just in case it came up, that we could share his breath water ability as long as we were close to him. We didn't see it coming up, as any time we'd be in the ocean, we'd have our eyes peeled for infected blue whales or God knows what, but it was worth knowing. More immediately relevant was the swashbuckler's news about his spell selection. He'd taken Sending and Repel Vermin. Under normal situations, that would have been an odd spell selection, but he said it seemed to fit with the current predicament. We were interested to see how Repel Vermin would work against the drifter bugs. They were individually weak. So with one casting, the swashbuckler would have over an hour of being a walking citronella candle. The DM also ruled that chitter didn't apply to that, being essentially a part of the swashbuckler anyway. He also scribed reincarnate into his prayer book, which our DM probably didn't notice and start planning over. Sure. Then we started discussing plans. Yeah, that siege plan I mentioned above? Pay it no mind. The Dragon Shaman didn't think it was a good idea, and the swashbuckler agreed. 2-on-2 means we needed to hash it out, and the Dragon Shaman pointed out that our first and foremost goal was the assassination of the infected devil before it could open the gate to hell. Any other plans, even including the protection of the angel, had to fall by the wayside until the immediate threat was neutralized. It wasn't about good or evil, just about our immediate need to fight an immediate threat to the stability of the planar cosmology as we know it. After hearing it put that way, me and the kobold were actually swayed. He was right. Growing the healing bugs was a tertiary pressure, not a primary one, and we needed to bring our full force to bear. We knew that the drifter bugs couldn't survive in the Arctic cold, so anything coming our way was going to be charioted on the wings of sturdier creatures. Not having an immediate plan, my compatriots began animating and arming some skeletons, while I set out scribing 2 scrolls of SCRY. One for the angel, one for the devil. Also, while I was scribing those scrolls, the swashbuckler scribed a new scroll of reincarnate, just to have at the ready. Auto success, and a day and a half later, and we had 2 scrolls of scrying ready to go. First we scried on the Angel to determine her status. The FS Bluebird was still in good condition, and the Angel was calmly sitting at the doorway to the captain's quarters, staring out patiently at the dragon charioting her around. We couldn't make out the rest of the ship, but she didn't seem injured or in distress. We scried on the Devil before doing anything else. It was traveling in a thick vicious cloud of insects, alongside Thurin and the Changeling. The bugs were so thick, we couldn't make anything else out, but they seemed to be traveling very quickly. Their haste was probably our greatest advantage against them. If they buckled down and began infecting monsters, they could bring an army we couldn't defeat, and we knew it. But they're booking it with such speed from target to target, likely the schizophrenic and impatient drifter responsible for that, trying to accomplish their goals as fast as possible, that we had a chance to throw monkey wrenches in their gears. While we scried on the Devil though, we did see the bugs thinning out slightly, and some type of flying mounts rising up through the swarm. The SCRY cut out before we got details, but they appeared to be some kind of smaller dragons. While we had the chance, we had Makuiyer inspect the two hatches leading to heaven and hell. He confirmed that's exactly what they seemed to be, and gave us a little insight into the manner of locking that was holding them shut. There seemed to be alternate ways of opening the portals, and in fact the portals seemed to be able to open to multiple different planes, depending on how they were opened. The one on the underside lead mostly to higher planes of goodness. If it was opened properly though, it would lead straight to the highest reaches of true heaven. We would bet our last gold piece that the Angel was the key to opening it to those highest reaches. The portal on the top side indeed would open in a pit to the lower planes, in a similar fashion. The devilish creature likely being the key to opening the pit to the lowest reaches of hell itself. Opening the gates at all would be worrisome, but the Devil or Angel opening them directly would be much worse. We weren't 100% sure on what to do, but we wanted the Angel's insight, and we considered it time to start keeping her with us at all costs. We didn't want her back in danger, but we needed to pool our resources from here on out. We sent a sending spell to her telling her to return to the desert ziggurat. The dragon shaman and the swashbuckler were going to go through the desert portal, meet up with the Angel, and plot the likeliest course between the volcano and the Arctic, the path the Devil was likely traveling. They were going to fly the Bluebird at them from behind and launch an assault from the backside. Meanwhile, the Angel was going to return to the Arctic, where she'd be safe from swarms of bugs, and me and the Kobold were going to fly back from the Arctic in an effort to head the Devil off. Both teams were going to strike with the strongest force we could bring to bear in an effort to kill the Devil, with extreme prejudice, was the phrase used if I recall correctly. If we could capture the Changeling, we would do so, but the dragon shaman promised not to let that distract him from the goal at hand. So that's exactly what we did. We left Makuiyer and the Angel in the Holy Temple, with the magical mirror. Why bring it to the Drifter's men anyway? It's safer in the cold. Makuiyer was going to go back and forth, moving healing bugs to the desert ziggurat and setting up magical defenses and mundane barricades there. Him and the Angel would move to wherever they could be kept safest. We also asked the Angel more about the hatch. She said she could open it now and escape to heaven, but that doing so would prevent it from shutting until she returned. She was one of the pillars of this reality, bound here for the express reason of connecting us with the planes of goodness. Even dead, she would still be physically here, though goodness would wane and the balance would be upset. It would not instantly shatter, and could be repaired in time. The same applied to the Devil, the other way around. They were part of what made the material world, material. Killing the Devil would upset the natural order of things, but not irreparably so. Dragon Shaman, so if you tried to escape to heaven and shut the door behind you. Angel, this world would simply become a new layer of hell. Swashbuckler, heavy. Me. And if we somehow uninfected the Devil and pushed him through the pit to hell to get rid of him? Would this world become part of heaven? Angel, in a sense. This world would indeed become physically connected with the higher planes, but the natural taint of evil it contains would violate heaven's nature. The results would be chaotic and destructive. I'm not sure what would happen in that case. Dragon Shaman, so no easy answer. Why does that not surprise me? We have an easy answer. Kill both of them. The Angel unfurled her wings and cracked her knuckles, assuming a rigid and ready stance, obviously preparing for the fight she would be forced to unleash. The dragon shaman just shook his head no at me, which made me back down. The Angel immediately relaxed and tucked her wings back into place. So we set out with our plan. The dragon shaman and swashbuckler left through the desert and got on board the bluebird, sailing off to catch the devil from behind. Me and the kobold mounted the sphinxes, protected them from the elements of the cold, and started flying from the Arctic platform to head them off in their path. The angel and Makuiir began moving the healing bugs to the desert ziggurat to make them grow, and warding it against all comers. We tried to figure out the timing. The devil had a head start on reaching the Arctic, but the bluebird was faster than the sphinxes. We figured the sphinxes would meet up with the mass of bugs slightly sooner than the bluebird, so it was me and the kobold's responsibility to be enough of a pain that they slowed down enough for the bluebird to catch up. As we flew over the course of days overland travel takes, we saw the darkness of the Arctic fade and the light gradually returning to the land. We also saw very little in the way of combat. The dragon shaman and swashbuckler saw more trouble, coming from an infected area and soaring through a wake of bugs and infected monsters, but nothing very strong attacked them. It was just a small drain on their resources. We turned out to have been wrong on the timing though. Maybe it took the devil longer to mobilize than we'd anticipated, but the bluebird spotted the cloud of bugs before we did. They tailed it for a few hours, obviously having been spotted, but just holding back and waiting for a sign that we were near. The cloud sent back masses of bugs to fight them, but it wasn't enough to deter them in any real fashion. It was when me and the kobold riding the sphinxes saw the mass of bugs that all hell really started breaking loose. The cloud sent off tendrils of black bugs flying in unison, acting as some kind of disembodied tentacles that tried to swat me and the kobold out of the sky. We successfully bypassed them though, and clashed with the cloud just as the bluebird flew into it from behind. I threw up a wall of flame in the cloud's path of travel, and the whole mess screeched in anger as the dark fire literally raked through the swarm and sent thousands of the bugs falling out of the sky. The dragon shaman leapt off the deck of the ship and started breathing fire everywhere, while the kobold let loose with area spells to thin out the bugs' numbers. The sea below us was literally black and bumpy with the sheer volume of dead bugs that we were leaving falling out of the sky. It was when we'd thinned them out enough to have put a noticeable dent in the cloud, maybe 5% smaller, after maybe 10 rounds of destruction, that the real trouble started. The cloud parted to reveal a whole mess of medium and large-sized dragons of various colors, all belching breath weapons at us, with Thurin and the changeling mounted on 2 of them. The devil was still flying under its own power. We knew we were about to take a beating, but it was okay. That was the plan. While me, the kobold, and the dragon shaman all engaged the dragons, the swashbuckler had been flying the bluebird up over the cloud. He was taking a little bit of a beating from the bugs, as they were manifesting as medium and large-sized, humanoid, forms. Like elementals made from bugs. Bugamentals. Still, he fought them plainly, without magic, bug versus sword, not wanting to reveal the ace up his sleeve until it would truly blindside the drifter. And then, once he'd gotten the bluebird up in position over the devil, he revealed his hand. He cast Repel Vermin, causing the bugamentals to shriek and dissipate away from his presence, and littering the deck with bug carcasses from where he passed, and took a running leap off the front of the ship. No mount, no fly spell, just him. He fell through the cloud, causing a whirlwind as he pierced a 20-foot by 20-foot hole straight through the cloud, untouchable by the swarm, and landed on the devil's back, grabbing it around the neck with a sharp thud. The devil faltered in mid-flight, cursing and tumbling out of the sky with our psychotic swashbuckler clinging to him in some kind of deranged bear hug. The bugs couldn't do anything about it, and in fact, the Repel Vermin spell seemed to be weakening the drifter's hold over the devil, and the rune on its forehead waned and weakened in pulses, growing stronger and dimmer back and forth. It didn't matter though. Whether the devil was infected or not, we were going to slay the thing to take it out of the picture. Pillar of reality be damned, the angel herself said things would repair over time. The swashbuckler grabbed one of the devil's wrist and swung over the side, flying under the devil and holding onto him viciously, freeing up his hand to draw his rapier and making true striking power attacks at the devil from underneath it. The devil, to its credit, clawed at the swashbuckler with its free hand and shook violently in mid-flight, but in the end, the swashbuckler finally managed to drive his rapier up through the devil's throat. He killed it, but didn't drive it far enough past negatives to stop what happened next. With a lurching cough, the devil dissolved into a swarm of bugs, and the swashbuckler tumbled out of the sky. Right onto the back of the kobold's sphinx, who had made one hell of a swoop underneath him to catch the swashbuckler. They didn't avoid crashing into the sea, but the kobold managed to guide the sphinx back at a hard enough angle that his mount took the brunt of the fall, breaking its body and destroying it. Unfortunately, and sending the two spilling into the sea. Me and the dragon shaman though? We were getting our butts kicked. Everywhere we looked, another medium-sized dragon was banking into us and literally body slamming us in a new direction, sending us tumbling lower and lower through the cloud, away from the changeling and Thurin. I sent my Sphinx down as a mount for the kobold and swashbuckler, but it was taking a minute to reach them, and wasn't in good shape itself. The dragon shaman could drop in mid-flight hard enough to avoid some of the strikes, and I was teleporting with Flee the Scene and confusing the heck out of them, but we were not winning. The dragon shaman had a plan though. He told me to order the undead dragon in the sky to obey him, which I did, and then he banked out of the cloud and left me there. Which I was none too happy about. Everywhere I moved, a host of dragons and bugs followed me, and I wasn't fast enough to make a successful escape. The dragon shaman had gotten out by dive bombing, but I didn't have the maneuverability to get out the same way he had without some kind of decoy, and Flee the Scene wasn't cutting it. Worse, Thurin had broken away from the changeling in a rage, and was flying at me in a fury. He raked at me with his dragon mount, and shrugged off the repelling blast I threw at him to try to get away, his dragon grappling me and biting at my face. I grabbed its jaws, but I wasn't nearly strong enough to do much. And then the DM made me roll a listen check. I passed, and I heard a distinct whooshing of air from above, different from the other noises of battle. Which made me notice that the bluebird was directly above me, and falling hard. The dragon shaman had gotten to the deck, flown it over Thurin and the thickest cloud of dragons, and ordered the undead dragon to drop it. I was apparently collateral damage. I successfully managed to cast Flee the Scene despite the grapple, and teleported straight up at the last second, through and over the ship crashing down, leaving it crushing Thurin in a whole mess of dragons as it drove them down into the surface of the sea with a horrible sickening crunch, and the sound of shredding wood as the entire deck crashed into hundreds of pieces. I just floated there in the mess of angry bugs, staring down slack-jawed at the ruined deck and the pile of dragon corpses which I immediately raised and sent flying into the fray to fight the surviving dragons. The dragon shaman meanwhile, did a dive into the surface, to go below water and make sure Thurin was actually dead. He'd survived the hit, somehow, and was weakly paddling towards the surface. The dragon shaman swam at him, and when Thurin spotted him, he made a desperate lunging strike with his hand, attempting to do the throat-slashing move. The dragon shaman bit his hand in mid-water to stop him, and ran him clean through with the bastard's sword. There was no noise, Thurin just stared in the silence of the water as the blade ran him through, and sliced clean upwards, cutting him in two. The two floated there for a time, in a cloud of Thurin's blood, the dragon shaman just calmly staring until he was satisfied there were no surprises coming. He then cut Thurin's head clean off, and swam to the surface, breaking out of the water and struggling to fly upwards. By that time, the Sphinx escorting the swashbuckler and kobold had joined me in the fray, and we were finishing off the last of the dragons. I activated my fiendish resilience to start healing from the fight, and the dragon shaman started slying around with us, addressing me directly. Dragon shaman, oh. Good. You survived. Me, yeah. I did. Dragon shaman, good. I'm glad. I was hoping you'd see the ship and teleport away at the last second. Me, I did. I did teleport away at the last second. Dragon shaman, good. I was so worried you wouldn't. Swashbuckler, biting his knuckle awkward. We regrouped and tried to find the changeling, but the cloud was dissipating, and she was nowhere to be seen. Even with the swashbuckler driving bugs away in a sphere around him, we couldn't push through them fast enough to find out what happened to her. She was the last of the Drifter's original group, but the Drifter himself wasn't going to go down so easily obviously. We needed to find her and heal her, for the dragon shaman's sake. But we also needed to find a way to heal the world at large. I got on my blue dragon, which I guess was officially my mount now that the ship was destroyed. The team also destroyed the remaining Sphinx, and I animated some more suitable dragons and transferred control over them, so now 3 of us have undead dragon mounts. Which makes us pretty fast, in an overland travel type scenario. We warded the dragons against cold weather and set off back to the Arctic, planning to camp out and wait for Makuhir to notice we were there, then come up with a new plan. We made it back to the Arctic without trouble, and after a few hours of camping on the platform, Makuhir noticed us and opened a portal to the desert ziggurat for us, but as he was opening it, he noticed activity through the jungle portal through the mirror. We all looked through it, and saw the changeling staring patiently at the doorway. As soon as we looked through the portal, She eyed the corners of the doorway, obviously unable to see through the portal, but somehow able to tell when we were looking through it, and said, "I know you're listening to us. There's something you must understand. We do not care about this piddly little world. There are limitless others for us to rule. This is what will happen. We will come to the ziggurat we first met at. The angel will be there. Then we will return to heaven in her. If she is not there, we will set out to ruin this pathetic reality until there is nothing left but us." With that, the changeling walked calmly out of the room, and a single spell-casting bug, this one a swirl of purples and reds, walked calmly into the middle of the room. One of the purple and red gems in its back flashed brilliantly, and then with a sudden lurching swirl, the center of the room was nothing but a deep crater where the bug had stood. It self-destructed, and took a huge chunk of the floor with it. The dragon shaman barked to open the portal, but before we could, a swarm of 20 or so of the red and purple bugs flew into the room, and all proceeded to activate at once. With a sudden flash, the portal was gone. We were looking at nothing but an open door frame with Arctic snow drifting lazily behind it. And immediately thereafter, the doorway itself crumbled into gravel and dust. We were all speechless. We couldn't figure out what to do here. We didn't know how many of those self-destruct bugs he had, but we could only assume he meant it when he said he would ruin reality. We couldn't let him destroy the desert ziggurat, or our healing bug idea would be utterly ruined. We couldn't let him have the angel outright, or we'd be damning countless innocent souls as we ruined heaven itself, and God knows how many worlds, how many planes, how many cracks the drifter would find in reality and press through into new ones. Our only thought? Running, with the angel as bait. The drifter has shown himself to be uniquely single-minded, despite apparently being of multiple minds. If we showed him the angel, and then bolted with her, maybe we could get him chasing us rather than wrecking things. Maybe long enough to get our healing bugs as a valid weapon against him. We felt pinned. And regrettably, we didn't have as much time to game last night as we would have liked to, so we had to end the session just then. Our DM said that we're moving the story along really quickly though, and that it probably won't be too many more sessions before things wrap up, one way or another. We didn't level this session, as it was on the brief side. We asked if we'd be hitting level 20, and the DM said, probably not in this campaign, so we probably are reasonably close to a climax. I'm just the messenger though /quote. So, the 3 party members capable of necromancy have undead dragons large enough for us to ride. We trimmed down the rest of our undead just for simplification and the ability to raise corpses as we find them, but the swashbuckler is keeping his undead bat, which is clinging to the underside of his dragon and ready for suicide missions. I also have my 13 mental patients bound viaduct their souls to my service. I asked the DM about it, and he said I could pull their souls out of the dark orb and put them into smaller gems if I felt the need to sell or destroy them. The dragon shaman face-palmed, but it was just idle curiosity about what my character could actually do with them. Then we set out seeing what we could do about our problem at hand. We asked Makuiyer his thoughts about the healing bugs. His response was that the healing bugs looked to evolve faster than the other types of bugs, probably because they were channeling positive energy, the force of life itself and all, so it was augmenting their growth. In the time we'd set up shop and started forming plans, several of the bugs had already molted from cantrip casting bugs, to first level casting bugs, and the rest were looking healthy and ready to molt any time. They were also breeding like rabbits. We asked him if he thought they would be able to evolve to cast mass curing spells, and his exact word was undoubtedly. We asked him how long it would take. I'm not sure, a week? Maybe 2. We didn't have 2 weeks. The drifter was bearing down on our position, and if we didn't fork over the angel and the mirror, we were going to find out just how many of those self-destructing bugs the drifter had managed to get mobilized. We hoped he was bluffing, that there was no way he could actually honestly wreck the planet with those bugs alone. He could still do a number on us. Massive infection combined with anarchy would be very destructive, but not so much that the world wouldn't heal in time. But if he could just nuke the planet with disintegrate spells. Well, no more world as we know it. Kobold, oh we do a tiger by the tail. We run, with the angel prominently displayed as bait, and give him just enough fight to keep all of his attention focused on us. And we pretend this ziggurat no longer exists. Does the drifter even know Makuiyer is still alive and well? Or that he's valuable? I don't think he does. Dragon shaman, no I'm pretty sure he doesn't know actually. Kobold, Right, so we bolt. Makuhir wards the entrance and plays bug farmer, and gets ready with a counter nuke. And he can go through the papers and stuff that they left there in the first place. There might be something relevant in there. And we have the mirror. We can open portals to everywhere possible and start blanketing the world in bug bombs when they're ready. Yay, we had a plan. The dragon shaman wondered how thoroughly the jungle ziggurat was destroyed. We probably couldn't rebuild the ancient portal constructed when the world was young, whose other half had now crumbled to dust, but we could at least assess how beat up the ziggurat looked. The explosions there were nothing but a warning to us, so we could see how much power the drifter poured into that warning. If there wasn't much damage done, the drifter might be bluffing. If there was a lot of damage done, we might be in serious trouble. If the ziggurat had been turned into a lightly smoking crater. So we set to find out the hard way. Run from the drifter, head towards the ziggurat, and just keep running until Makuhir can get our secret weapon up and running. We set out immediately, leaving my mental patients as guardians and hopping on our undead dragons. The four of us, the angel, and 3 zombie dragons flying in a circle over the desert canyon, waiting for the drifter to show himself. It was night time, so we almost didn't notice it coming. It was only the golden glowing runes shining faintly against the mass that revealed it headed our way. The horizon in all directions was black. Just a solid black mass of advancing bugs so thick they were literally tumbling against each other more than flying in a cloud. There were no infected creatures. No dragons, or people waving swords, or anything. Just bugs. So many bugs that they scrabbled to our location like a titanic black ooze, more a single mass than anything else. They were on every side. Everywhere we looked was just a wall of bugs. Occasionally, in the rolling chittering form, we'd see temporary shapes. The drifter's face, hundreds of feet tall and made of solid bug. The humanoid-shaped masses of various sizes, the bugamentals, as we called them, forming and then discorporating back into the swarm at whole in rapid succession. We had to leave before they simply flooded our location. Swashbuckler, up and over. Everyone, nod, up and over. We flew up at a steep angle, over the mass, discovering that it reached just above the cloud covers. We still managed to squeak out a bit higher, and fortunately, the dragons were faster than the mass of bugs. Black tendrils snaked out from the mass at us, making slow exaggerated swings to knock us from the sky, but we outmaneuvered them. Occasionally, the tendrils would link together and form lanky clawed hand shapes, trying to literally engulf us as we flew, but we were fast enough to avoid most of them, and when they did get close, the dragon shaman would open with some heavy breath weapon to char a path clean for us. When that failed, I would sever the tendrils from the mass with ever-shifting walls and rings of fire. What really unnerved us the most was the noise. There were no angry roars or howled curses. It was just a deafening constant hum of cheaty new swings and clicking mandibles. On some level, I regretted not taking Eldritch Cone. A few times, swarms broke off to intercept us and formed bugamentals on the backs of our dragons, but we fought like adventurers fight and destroyed everything that got in our faces. I feel the need to point out that our escape from the desert ziggurat took quite a while, and there was a load of combat against bug swarms in various incarnations. Short of listing a roll-by-roll list from our session, which we don't actually write down or anything like that, this is going to be a shorter entry than it actually was at the table. We fought our butts off to defend the angel from the mass, and we had to keep our eyes peeled on the canyon fading in the background. Luckily the drifter ignored the canyon and the ziggurat, meaning Makuhir was, theoretically, safe there for the time being. That meant we had to avoid the area for as long as possible while the bugs evolved and bred, a hopeless task maybe, but it was all we had. Finally, after shredding and roasting our way through metric tons of possessed beetles, we broke out into semi-open waters, heading away from the coast. We couldn't really rest outright, because smaller swarms kept cutting us off, but it was relaxing to get away from the slowly advancing wall of doom that had been on us. We flew in a triangle, with the angel gliding in between us and the dragon shaman below her for maximum protection, and made our way to the jungle ziggurat. This next part was a solo mode for the kobold. When we made it to the jungle continent, it occurred to us that we couldn't realistically land and poke around to check things out. The slowly advancing wall of doom wasn't that much slower than us, and we were still getting scrapped by swarms. We had to keep booking, but we also wanted to know as much as possible. The solution? The same solution we always had when something questionable and uneasy came up. Send the kobold. He figured out how many rounds he would be able to move while haste, how far he'd be able to move per round, and set him off like a black little bullet. He cast haste on himself, sprung off the dragon as it banked low to the trees, hit the ground with a roll, and kept moving at a ridiculous pace. We stopped to figure out his speed, and came up to about 40 miles per hour. Barefoot. So moving like the devil's chasing him, the kobold clears the distance to the ziggurat, pads up the side without breaking side, and tucks and rolls into the entrance so fast he actually winds up bouncing and rolling off the ceiling and continuing his run without breaking stride. The ziggurat was still standing. That was good news. The bad news was that there were still a few of the self-destruct bugs inside of it. The kobold managed to dodge them like they were a minefield, but they kept flying at him and popping, hurting the stone structure itself and generally tearing up the place, leaving huge craters in the walls, ceilings, and floors. At one point, he realized he was going to be unable to avoid one of the disintegrate bugs in his path, so he pulled out his hand crossbow, and using an inspiration point, made a running shot at the thing and plunked it clean where it sat. As he dashed past, he scooped it up and stuffed it into his side pack so we could check it out. When he got to the main chamber after a few rounds of running, he realized that we probably weren't in as bad of shape as we might be, but that things also weren't really looking up for us. The main chamber was crawling with the self-destruct bugs, and there were craters all over. The whole place looked really unstable, and the portal room itself was practically blown clean through to the outside. The kobold did a run up the walls move, and managed to spring off with a successful jump check, changing his direction and leaping over the giant mass of disintegrate bugs that were chasing him, rolling gracefully on the other side of the swarm, and taking a pretty heavy hit of damage when some of the closer ones popped with him nearby, but managed to start sprinting back out towards the entrance. When he got back out, we were circling back over the area just as planned, knowing how many rounds he had before he had to turn back, and all that. We knew how many rounds it would be before we needed to be back over the area. With his last round of haste, he sprinted up the side of the ziggurat and did an inspired jump check to fly off the pinnacle and land successfully back on his dragon mount. It was a detour we were all glad we made. We knew the threat the drifter had made was credible, but not that the world was going to be instantly scorched down to its core. Well, probably not anyway. Whether it was because we'd poked our noses where they didn't belong, or simply a natural side effect of being on this part of the world, we began to get attacked by self-destruct bugs making kamikaze dives at us. On top of that, the black onyx bugs were becoming thicker and thicker no matter where we went, and the angel was taking a lot of splash damage from being so close to us while we fought to protect her, and from some of the bugs getting through and attacking her directly. We started realizing how hopeless things were getting, and I once again mentioned the possibility of simply offing the angel as a logical course of actions. Even the dragon shaman was hard-pressed to say it was a bad idea, but in the end, the party just couldn't bring themselves to go through with it. Which turned out to be a mistake, because finally, after fighting God knows how many swarms, it might not come across in the writing, but we practically rolled our dice smooth with the sheer volume of combat we experienced in this session. Finally, the angel fell, and immediately disappeared into the massive cloud of bugs, which began shifting north. We could hear the angel's voice from inside the massive cloud saying, "See? Why did we have to do this the hard way, when we could have already been gone from this miserable world? Why did we drag out the suffering?" Before her voice faded away under the whir and hum of the drifter's wings. The bugs largely left us alone, though we did still have to make a token effort at fighting them off, to be more trouble than we were worth to kill, presumably because they felt there was nothing more we could do. The drifter considered himself the winner already, and was escorting the infected angel to the Arctic platform directly. We talked options. Makuhir would be nowhere near ready, but he might have generated enough positive energy to heal the angel. If we could get back to the desert ziggurat before the angel made it to the platform, we might be able to set up some kind of heal bomb ambush. A few of the stronger healing bugs, the lay-on hands from the dragon shaman, and whatnot, and we might be able to clean her. At which point, I put forth the possibility of uninfecting her and then pushing her through the portal, plunging this world into a new layer of hell. Everyone stared at me. Me, what? We're screwed. Have you not noticed the massive cloud of bugs is now everywhere we go? What are we trying to save here? The world. No, this world's dead, it just hasn't caught up to that fact yet. There's nothing left but us, Makuhir, and the drifter as far as I can tell. Kobold, so we just damn our entire world. Me, to save heaven and every other world. Yes. Dragon Shaman, when did you suddenly become self-sacrificing and altruistic? Me, I'm not. I plan on going to hell when all of this is over with, one way or another. Physically. I'm over here transcending into a demonic form bit by bit and all. You guys would be the ones sacrificing yourselves nobly, I'll be going home. Swashbuckler, what if we uninfect the angel, push her into heaven, and find out that one of the drifter bugs managed to hitch a ride inside of her? Dragon Shaman, points at the swashbuckler. Good question. What if? Me, then I still get a free ride to hell. Dragon Shaman, loud buzzer noise. Time for a new plan. We kill the angel. Me, that was my plan too. Kobold, that was her plan too, it's true. Dragon Shaman, you wanted to do it while she was still an angel, I'm doing it because it's a last-ditch effort. Me, yeah, I wanted to do it back when it would be easy. Now it's going to be a war. Dragon Shaman, the righteous path is rarely the easiest in all. Me, evil will always triumph because good is dumb. DM, penalty flag. No movie quotes. Nonsense conversations aside, killing the angel is what we wound up settling on. It wouldn't destroy the drifter, but it would destroy his last chance at getting off this rock, and that was good enough for our party. We debated on the best way to approach, but we decided to cut them off in an ambush by flying back to the desert ziggurat and heading to the Arctic platform. We weren't sure how fast the angel/bug swarm could travel, or what other travel options the drifter had, but by all reasonable calculations, we would get to the Arctic platform before him and with time to spare at that, but not much time. So that's what we did. Makuhir was surprised to see us after only a few days travel back and forth, and said he thought he might be onto something after going through Priest and the Drifter's notes on the rituals they'd been performing. That there might be any number of counter-rituals. Kobold, counter-rituals? Elaborate. Makuhir, I'm not completely positive yet, the notes are psychotic, disjointed, there are critical bits missing and obviously he didn't list things that could obviously be used against him, but I may be able to piece together a ritual that's the opposite of the one he performed to become this monstrosity in the first place. Something using the healing bugs and a willing host to create a sort of curative alternative to this man's possessing. Dragon Shaman, wait, like someone with a healing touch. Makuhir, more like one massive pulse of positive energy, based on how many bugs were sacrificed, but yes. We let Makuhir get back to his bugs and books, and the DM informed us that we leveled up to 14. Me and the Dragon Shaman each got an extra 1d6 for our respective abilities, the Kobold got access to 5th level spells, and the Swashbuckler went back to taking levels in Swashbuckler to keep his hit points and bab up, both for his sake, and for his familiar, Chitter.